Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to put a quick poll up on the screen while we give everyone a minute to join. Let me put this up here. What we're looking to do here is tailor our conversation around your responses. So, do you employ a single or multi-vendor strategy in your localization program? We have three choices, single, multi, or neither. With neither, that would be either you're doing it all internally or you don't have a program set up. So we'll give everyone a moment to join. I hope everyone is doing well today. All right, surprising. Let me share these with you. Looks like we have 73% that are using a multi-vendor strategy. So very interesting. Actually what we were kind of thinking it would look like. So 20% of neither rather surprises me. So that's exciting. So welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Mandy Morgan. I'm a senior director with WeLocalize. I've been in the localization industry for about 15 years. On the call also we have Darren and Alfonso. I'll introduce them shortly. Over the last 5 years, I've worked very closely with Alfonso and the Cisco team on a daily basis. The webinar today will be a fireside chat between the two of them. They'll be discussing different approaches to technology and automation within the workflows. And a fun fact is Cisco is actually one of WeLocalize's very first clients. And the partnership has been a long journey of discovery and development, so we're excited to share that with you. For those of you who are new to WeLocalize in Cisco, I'll just give you a very short overview. So WeLocalize is a trusted partner in the global businesses across the globe in a variety of industries. We help clients reach, engage, and grow international audiences by delivering innovative solutions underpinned with a core expertise in localization. So we have over 1,900 employees. We support over 250 languages, and we're very global. We have offices across the globe. Cisco, some of you may know, is the worldwide leader in networking, software, security, and telecommunications equipment. Over 85% of the internet's traffic is actually traveling over Cisco's platform for both enterprise and small business. They have locations in 115 countries and employ over 75,000 people globally. Cisco has a net worth of 50 billion with a B through acquisitions and organic growth. They are part of the Fortune 500 company for the past 26 years, and they were actually rated #1 for the world's best place to work in 2019. Another little fun fact about Cisco is that they're actually named after San Francisco, and their logo is the Golden Gate Bridge. So before we get into our main discussion, I'd just like to give you some insights of how we landed on this webinar topic. Alfonso and I have bi-weekly actually, one-on-ones, and we were discussing a previous webinar that WeLocalize had hosted, and Alfonso said, have you ever considered a webinar that discussed how to use a TMS to bridge the gap between LSPs and their customers? From there, we continued our journey, and we continued the journey that Alfonso's been on with the role of automation and a centralized yet scalable program, and then how to digitize those programs. So being in the localization industry for 15 plus years, you may think that a lot of these large global brands have highly sophisticated tech stacks, but I found that that is not the case. We coupled with the speed coupled with innovation really leads to a complex decentralized structure. There's multiple stakeholders involved, high volumes of content that's being transferred from client to project manager over FTP or email. There's no structured approach to a vendor management or workflow or the crucial data that we really need to prove what we're doing. So over the past 5 years, I worked side by side with Alfonso, and we've worked on building both a scalable and centralized program. We've moved from one TMS to another. We've added automation into every aspect of the workflow, and we've digitized the program with data. So recapping all that, that's why we felt that focusing on a digitized and automated approach would be very beneficial to our peers. We decided to arrange a chat between Alfonso and Darren to share their expertise, and here we are at the webinar. So a quick introduction to both Alfonso and Darren. Alfonso has been with Cisco for 13 years. He's responsible for driving the global content strategy at Cisco to get Cisco's products and services into international markets. He leads the Cisco Globalization Translation Service Team, which we call GTS. This is an internal team that manages vendor-agnostic localization model, which drives the automation and efficiencies I was just talking about. It's a centralized platform, and this allows Cisco stakeholders to reach international markets. Darren, he's been in the localization industry for over 25 years. He's one of our innovative and technology leaders at WeLocalize. Darren's always thinking outside the box. He's working with many clients to develop and deliver solutions and drive automations and efficiencies. I see a lot of the names here, so I'm sure many of you have worked with Darren and I in the past, so welcome.
Thanks, man.
Just a quick moment. I want to save as much time as we can for Q&A at the end. So there is a question mark there. Feel free to submit your answers and we'll get to as many as possible at the end. If there are any that we don't get to, we'll reach out individually or do a blog post. And then if you have questions beyond this webinar, please reach out to us at info@welocalize.com. We'll also be recording this and sharing it early next week, and we'll be sending out a survey. 2 minutes, we'd love it if you could take it. Just give us feedback so we can use it for future webinars. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Darren and Alfonso.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good day, good evening, right? It's first of all, it's an honor to be here with sharing our experience, our story of the Cisco globalization journey. I hope that many of you are familiar with the Jenga stack figure that we show here in the chart. And the reason that I love this image is because it truly represents in the state of how my service, the globalization and localization service for Cisco, was 5 years ago, as Mandy mentioned, right, that we started this journey. That Jenga stack represented the complexity, how intertwined, how heavily dependent on one vendor company, and furthermore, dependent on antiquated systems. And what was even perhaps the tipping of the iceberg here, or the tipping factor, was it did not provide a leveled playing field for my vendors. And as you can see, I mean, why the reason you see it is collapsing. I shows an image of collapsing Jenga stack because 5 years ago we saw this is no longer scalable. I mean, if we want to grow and go where Cisco needs us to be, we needed to think differently, right? Because if you see in the statistics here, we have been managing volumes of words in the range from 5 years ago. In FY represents fiscal year for Cisco, or fiscal year 17, we were handling approximately 125 million words, processing them. And it's the expectation that in this fiscal year that we are about to finish next week, we will be processing in upper side of 185 million words. And the curve, that the projection is, it keeps growing, right? And just to give a perspective, I mean, as to why I said it's not scalable and how this Jenga stack was going to be the collapse is because look at the number of stakeholders. We are a Cisco's internal service that provides these capabilities of localization to all the company in the world, 115 countries. So just for this year, we have recorded over 2,000 different stakeholders that work with us on a regular basis. And as I said, and counting, because every year it's at some drop, but many more come. So as you see, this Jenga stack was about to collapse. So what did we decide to do? I mean, if we go to the next chart, I mean, hopefully it will provide a visual that many of you have seen in a commercial from a famous automaker, a German automaker, right? That it just depicts a guy just driving his car all the time, and all of a sudden a heavy team of experts, technicians, mechanics just show up, put side by side, and on the road without stopping, they completely revamped that car. So at the end of the commercial, this guy goes out with a brand new car. I mean, without even having to stop. I like this image. I mean, and Darren, you may see this because as a technical leader in We Localize, this is what many times comes to us is, oh, you got to update your tech stack. You got to be on top of things, but oh, I cannot afford to stop.
Right.
I cannot afford to stop. Right?
Yeah, it's an iterative process, and the plane never lands or the car never stops, and you have to think through that from the user experience. There's still projects to produce, and yeah, it's been an interesting journey working both within our re-platforming of our services delivery platform alongside of the work that you guys have done, which you'll get to here in the next slide. Keeping everything afloat at the scale in which we interact and support you. It's been a challenge, but it's been a success on our side, and we hear good things from yours. So
Yeah.
I like that analogy. I often use the flying the plane and building it at the same time. So
exactly right. So anyhow, but thank you. And this is as Darren, I mean, that you mentioned, right? Just to show, we share with the rest of the audience here, what is it that we have done? This is the core of our journey in Cisco. If we start from the left-hand side, you will see a little Pega symbol that represents our engine. We had to establish a portal that we will enable all those over 2,000 stakeholders that I mentioned to interact with us more easily without having to be via email, exchanging files that it's prone to error. We had to establish something simple for them just to show up in the system and create the request. We call that the LME, or Localization Management Engine. And I just bring the Pega because it is based, it is not something that was homegrown. It is based on a platform that is already in the market that are experts in workflow processes. So first and foremost, keeping our stakeholders in mind and the forefront. How can we come to them and make it easy for them to work with us? That was the first and foremost piece. The second one was when it comes now to a decision point. This is where we had to make the decision in terms of what all the infrastructure, technologies, capabilities, and even vendors that we had back then. What needs to be owned and controlled by us, by Cisco, versus what we have to give up and let our vendors, who are the experts, manage, because that's what they do best. And this is where the decision came that we have to come and own that TMS, the core engine, which is our translation management system, or TMS platform, that, as I said, if you're recalling, that Jenga stack was antiquated. And the reason that I say antiquated, because it did not provide the flexibility. For example, let me just throw an example, and perhaps you remember, Darren and Mandy, right? That in order for us to be able to interact, not only with We Localize, but with other vendors, we had to rely on people coming to that platform, download files, put them in and package them and sending them to your own systems, just coming back. So it was, I mean, now that I look backwards, disastrous. I mean, not scalable, right? Yeah. And also, in terms of the technology, did not provide that security, right? I mean, nowadays we all talk about security. The information needs to be protected at all times. Cisco's IP is key for us, right? For our success. So we selected this platform XTM because, keep in mind, it is not perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? But at least provided us with the greatest way of enabling flexibility, ease of use, right? And security. That was the first and foremost.
Yeah, it's interesting. At the same time, you guys were re-platforming your tech stack and looking at moving to a new TMS. We underwent a similar Many folks that know We Localize are familiar with GlobalSight, probably one of the longest standing TMSs out there. And when we end-of-lifed it and decided that we were no longer going to do future development, we needed to go out to the market and see what's a logical replacement for that TMS. And what's interesting, like, it's to be clear, you know, we're not 100% XTM shop. We're agnostic in our approach to using technology. Just like your slide here, you're using fit for purpose, best of breed technologies. Pega, for instance, on your portal front end, and We Localize's approach is the same. We serve our customers through a variety of TMSs, and we look to optimize that TMS for that specific challenge. One of the reasons we landed on XTM for a core part of our business was really around data security. Not just in the regulated industries in which we work, all industries, we take our customers' data very, very seriously in terms of how we need to protect that. What we liked about XTM was an ability to have that hosted in our private AWS cloud. Nobody's mining that data. There's no AI that can happen on that data outside of our control. So for us, I mean, as we could probably spend an entire webinar talking about the various attributes of what makes a good TMS. And as you articulated, there are trade-offs, and we accepted some of those trade-offs with a goal being, let's start with something we can control in data security, which I think lends nicely to how you guys have approached the use of XTM to support multiple vendors.
Yeah, and you said it right. I mean, in terms of the trade-offs, because that's the piece that for us a crucial factor. If you remember back when I said about the Jenga stack that did not provide a leveled playing field, what we did in our tech stack was to bring that TMS, but also enable a platform that we call middleware, that everything plugs and play, including you as, I mean, We Localize on other vendors, that it's you come with your own tech stack and connect to ours, right? Because that's where we have the assets, the translated assets, the translated memory. And even if you see in the top section, the machine translation, we also decided to go and own that capability ourselves within Cisco. So that way, at the time that the entire process comes, any vendor that is connected to that platform, that vendor, this is where the vendor agnostic term comes, is that it was our vision is that how we can have a platform that allows every vendor to work on the same level, on the same playing field, no preferences, no advantages from one to the other. Yeah, it's some trade-offs because some, you know, we're tempted to say, oh, I can offer you all this tech stack and give me a price, you know, point. No, it's, I want everybody, because that's how we balance how Cisco controls the IP and the assets, and how we take the best out of what it is available by our vendors that are connected in our infrastructure. So yeah. I would like to hear your perspective on this, Darren.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I mean, look, at the end of the day, organizations of your size, when we're consulting with customers coming to us around, hey, can you provide a TMS environment that will allow multiple vendors to come into? That's a challenging topic because, again, coming back to data security, that's essentially asking for, you know, our organization or another organization to say, create permissions and authentications for competitor organizations to come into a single TMS environment. It's not that that's something we won't do, but it's something that we look at very closely. And this decision point is, and you're addressing it in your approach here, and I think many peer organizations would note that this is a smart approach. You're choosing what you need to own. And if you want a multi-vendor environment, it makes sense for you to own that TMS. And otherwise, you're kind of locking yourself into not just a translation service provider or a tech-enabled service provider or language organization, but now they're also supplying the tech. And as we know, in the worlds we live in, tech is not perfect. And that kind of creates an unlevel playing field, as you've described, right? So I think this is a clean approach. And coming back to the decision around XTM, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. One of the things that we feel is a pretty powerful, simple, out-of-the-box approach is this notion of subcontracting that XTM has. And it's the ability for you to have your own TMS. And this is where it gets really interesting at a data level, and we'll get to more to this in a little bit. But historically, we would have to reach out to you to say, look, we have 180 different linguist resources, and we need to have you create individual accounts for all of those, as opposed to saying, here's one we localize French account. Anyone that's doing French can use that, right? So it creates this disparity about the data that we can surface and the controls and the overhead that you would have to do to administer that. The subcontracting is, I think, kind of the best of both worlds here, because you're controlling your assets. We're all working off the same terminology databases, glossaries, and TMs, and we have the ability to manage all of our users independently. And that sounds simple, but it's very powerful, as we'll get to in a little bit around what we're all doing with the data. You need to have data at the discrete worker level. And this is a really simple way for us not to impose overhead on your side to help us get at that data.
Yeah, you just touched on going back to that decision points, right? I mean, in terms of what was needed to be kept in Cisco's control versus the vendor. And when I said versus the vendors, is we had to come to terms to say, we in Cisco, we are not experts in managing the actual workflows of translation. That's why my vendors, the LSPs, are good at. So our goal was provide that platform that they can connect to within our own infrastructure of security and data and systems, so they can go on and do their thing, like they say, right? And just come back, and us not having to worry about those details about who is working on this specific, if a person can come and go and change job, etc. That would be totally I mean, ridiculous for us to try to manage. That's up to my vendors. But the key element that this provides, which you said we are going to talk a little bit in a second, is if I come back to this chart, I mean, in the lower left-hand corner is enables the business intelligence. And when I say business intelligence, keep in mind what I said at the beginning. Now our focus is our stakeholders, our Cisco users. How can I go back to them that they have placed a request in our system and provide that simple, transparent, and on live data for them to know where things are, and without having to go and ask you guys, can you give me a report of what the status of this or XYZ? We just simply go into our tech stack, extract the data, and use a reporting platform, and voila. Right. Well, I know it sounds simple, but it's a little bit more complicated. But I mean, that's the beauty of this, as I fondly call it, the vendor agnostic infrastructure that we have created.
How in the world of connectors and all the content systems, in your LME system, you have over 2,000 discrete users. And so I know that on one hand, you need to keep that user experience simple, because you probably have users that are going to use that once or twice a year. And then you have high volume users, and with a variety of requirements around business intelligence and statusing. So I think, the LME is simple. It addresses all of those users. And those users' content isn't always just coming in from a Word doc, a PowerPoint, some fixed asset. Let's talk a little bit about the notion of connectors.
Oh, sorry. Just I get excited about this. I'm sorry. It's because that's precisely the second. I mean, it's been building a little wall in terms of the text, the foundation, the next layer. Now we are in this layer where we have established this infrastructure. Now it's turn around again to our stakeholders. How do we keep their interactions with us simpler, seamless? That was the next logical step, because many of them use because you can imagine in Cisco, there's a multitude of content management systems, or CMSs as we call them, right? Depending on which organization you talk to, they will have perhaps a version of one, but many times it's different. So what we have done, and we are now heavily working with many of those users, especially the heavy hitters, if you will, is how can we bring the connectors that are available, that are basically rooted in our base TMS technology, that will connect with those content management systems. So at the end of the day, it's even more beautiful, I would say, that instead of having someone from their team coming to Pega, which is relatively, I mean, it takes about a minute or two to create a request. No, now they can comfortably create an LME job or localization job from the comfort of their own content management. They just click a button and it sends digitally to us and goes through the entire process. So we, and just an observation here, because again, the question came back again to us. Who should own those connectors, right? Because, oh, we can ask, oh, my vendors come and connect to, no. It's, again, to be truthful to our vendor agnostic vision, we had to take the responsibility and ownership of those connectors. So that way, like I said earlier, we have to maintain a plug and play infrastructure. So that way we can plug and play vendors, but also plug and play content management systems and technologies. So that's why the beauty of this core tech stack that we are building.
Yeah, the connectors in the last few years have taken off. We've seen that everywhere, and we realize that not every organization has the depth of experience as well as the budget to do, and I'll talk about that in a minute with you, the budget to support all this. The kernel that you have is one that we're obviously highly aligned with. It makes sense. You're owning the things that you need to own to make something plug and play, scalable, level, and workable for all parties. Not every customer is going to be able to do that. And so in the We Localize world, we will oftentimes be asked to create connectors, support connectors. Oftentimes those connectors are viewed as a one and done, build it or deploy it, and then it's just magically going to work forever. And I think one takeaway folks should have is that, like all aspects of software development, they have to be maintained. And it's an interesting ecosystem when you have a content management system who is changing, and features change, and things are added and or break and or affect the connector. The connector technology needs to be modified, and then the downstream. So it's our approach is one of three, basically. We're like you, we're going to use the out-of-box connectors that a given TMS supports. In case of XTM, they have a bunch of connectors. Other TMSs like MemSource, they have a bunch of connectors. Those are driving factors also for fit for purpose on our side in terms of understanding what's the best fit. Maybe a selection is made because there's the right set of connectors available. So that's one thing. The other thing is, there are companies out there that, a lot of folks may remember the Clay tablet days, sort of that hub, that translator hub kind of model. There's some new takes on that with the customers and companies like Zilio. So there's other ways you can tackle this. And then there's just custom connectors, which we will build depending upon the business circumstances, right? So we actually have to take one of those three routes. You guys have basically said, and again, firmly agree with this, we don't need a vendor to come in upstream of this tech that we already own and say, now build a connector for us over here. And I like that approach. It isn't always the approach we get to live in, unfortunately, Alfonso. So sometimes we've got to get in there and do the scrums with the marketing teams and the sales teams, and help support our customers. It's what we do. It's kind of a consulting aspect of our business.
Yeah, that's precisely the point. So I mean, folks, I mean, this is in the simplest of the terms, our journey in Cisco, right? I mean, as to how, starting with coming from where we were, the decisions that we had to make, and the commitments that we have made in terms of building this tech stack. I mean, yes, it comes with with some pains, frustrations, absolutely, because nothing is, I mean, easy, I mean, and beautiful. I mean, we have to, and this is where we are heavily invested, my team and I, to support all of those over 2,000 stakeholders, because they don't stop. They just keep asking for more. I mean, the more beauty and bells and whistles, as they say, and capabilities that we bring to them, they say, "Oh, thank you. Can I get more?" I mean,
Yep.
so that's the constant evolution. And I think that this platform enables us to be always in the lookout for capabilities, new technologies, and bring them quickly, plug them, do a little trial, pilot, test it. If it works, okay. If it doesn't, well, bye-bye, unplug it, and look and bring the next. So,
Well, it supports the notion that the car is always running, and you have the ability to have the mechanics right alongside you as you're driving 70 down the Autobahn, or 150, whatever that might be. You know, like, that's the world that you live in, and so you might as well embrace it and build a tech stack that allows you to iterate into the future. Let's talk a little bit about funding, and you know, you maybe speak a little bit to how your organization funds these endeavors.
yeah, it's an interesting concept. Sometimes when I talk to some peer companies, I get asked that question as to what's the funding, the budget. Essentially, we are what we call in Cisco a shared service. Essentially, what it does is I have my budget for my team, but everything that you see here, including the actual service of the translation work, is something that I fondly in Cisco we call it the cross charge. In other words, is I just bill my stakeholders. I tell them this is how much the translation is going to cost, plus a little fee. We call it the Cisco infrastructure fee that helps me fund and support all this work that we do. I mean, it's a net of this is I am a zero profit organization. I just have to pass the cost and just get enough to sustain my fixed cost as infrastructure. And so that way, Cisco ensures that I'm going to be motivated to keep costs down, because at the end of the day, whatever I do through innovation, technology, and cost reductions is going to benefit Cisco.
Yeah, it's a pay-to-play model, and those users that are using your services are paying more for them. Yeah, it's interesting because you have a whole bunch of customers, and those customers probably, though mandated and strongly suggested to use the internal Cisco platform that you run, you probably run into stakeholders that go off the ranch a little bit and may choose to do their own localization. So it's imperative on you to make sure that those services are very cost efficient. It's an interesting model.
You said a key word there. I mean, I'm a shared service, and I know that my stakeholders, those 2,000 and even more, they have an option. So that's why I have to be relentless of how I can bring this, and they see it as value. Otherwise, I mean, Cisco will tell me just close the doors.
And the value that you're providing is that, sure, somebody can go off and work with their own vendor and create something that's unique. And the minute that happens, now it's like, well, now you don't have the benefit of Cisco trained MT engines in the stack. You don't have the benefit of corporate glossaries. And now you're trying to stay a corporate Cisco citizen in how you're messaging your content to the world, but you're not doing it through the massive infrastructure here. So you have a lot of different angles that you can use to keep your customers happy, and I'm sure that's one of them. Go ahead.
You see, this is the gray hair is because we have to constantly keep going back to those stakeholders, bring awareness, education, and demonstrate how we work. So that's part of the job.
Let's take a look at our next slide here. Keep our conversation going. Mandy, if you could move that forward for us.
Before we do that, we're going to do one more quick poll. So I'll put that up on the screen, but what best describes your current TMS environment? As a look buyer, you manage your own. Let me put this up here for you. You manage your own TMS. You have a TMS supplied by a translation vendor organization. You have a third-party tech or vendor supply it, or you don't have a local program. So I'll give everyone a few moments. Alfonso, just listening to you talk, what a journey it's been. And the truth is we're not done. So I'm excited for you to talk through what the future looks like as well. It
Yeah, I
looks
mean,
like we have about 27% of the votes. So I'll give everyone a couple more minutes to select their choice here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Alfonso.
no, I was just going to tell you, Mandy. I mean, well, you know this already. Buckle up, because
Very true. Okay, just votes are coming in quickly, so I want to give everyone a chance here. Cut it off in 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, the results are staying pretty consistent. So it looks like, getting the
Interesting.
results up here, 47% manage their own TMS. And then it's kind of split between no TMS, third party, and then 9 is managed by a vendor org.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if that 9% there is correlated in any way to those organizations. I think it was 20% in the original question that have a single vendor. And that makes a lot of sense. It's a model that we have with many of our customers that for a variety of reasons, volume, scale, a desire to work with one partner, that one of the value adds that We Localize brings is that, at no cost, we're going to stand up a secure customer hosted specific instance of a TMS. And that organization, that customer organization, doesn't have any TMS costs and all the benefits of it. That works great in a single vendor model, as we discussed earlier. So I bet there's a correlation there. Let's talk a little bit about the future.
Sorry, dear. Before we move on, I just want to encourage people to ask questions. There's a few coming in. So there's a little question box in the panel on the side. So please submit your questions and we'll save some time at the end for those.
Yep, we'll save as much time as we can. I think that's a rich part of these interactions. So over to you, Alfonso.
Yeah, I mean, like I said to Mandy while we were taking the poll questions, buckle up, because again, it's when you commit yourself with a relentless effort to, please your stakeholder. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about the usual phrases, but to truly work seamlessly with them and in terms of capturing their business, their requirements, but also in terms, which is the key element, is providing them with data, right, transparently and quickly. This is one feature that we are introducing, that we are heavily working. Is, I mean, many of us know a small web retailer in the world. I mean, that says track your package, that you get an email or a text that says click here to track your package, right? Well, that concept inspired us to, how can we bring that same simple concept to our technology? You see, the little screenshot that I'm sharing here is something that you as a stakeholder will come to LME, not any other system, just LME, and you will go to a tab where you can see the track your package. And what it basically will show you, for example, here we have a stakeholder that requested approximately 5 translation of a document into 5 different languages. And you will see the little arrows and this green or yellow circles. Basically what it does is, by language, it will display the status of the particular translation for that particular content in that particular language. I mean, that is powerful, because that's what we have, gone back to them, and they said, sometimes in the past, going back to that Jenga stack, guys, you are like a black box. I just place and I don't know what happens. Well, this is in response to that cry from our stakeholders, is how we can bring that information transparently and easy to consume, right? Because Darren, you won't let me lie here, but I mean, one of the first attempts that we had, let's create this massive report, or as we call it, the data dump. I mean, the stakeholders were just flabbergasted. I said, what is it? What are you telling me here? So we had to come to terms to what it was needed for them, while at the same time leveraging all that rich data that we collect, us and our vendors to, manage our own business, right? But there's a lot of pieces of information that, yeah, it is relevant to, for example, you guys in WeLocalize or other vendors or myself and with my finance team, etc. But has no meaning to the stakeholders. This is what has meaning: is I place my job, and I now want to know what is the ETA, bottom line, right?
It's and harvesting that data out of the TMS and bringing it into that user experience within LME is also smart and powerful. You don't need to have 2,036 different stakeholders going into the TMS to understand where their project is. This topic is an interesting one, and we put a lot of thought to it, and we have different kind of thought experiments going on around statusing like this. One theory is that, put all the data out there. Some customers want to know every single file, every single language, where it is in the workflow. That's fair. That we hear that a lot. And others are like, if as long as OTD is being hit, as long as all of the SLAs are being met, I shouldn't care. I know that 98% of the time, this is going to be on time. So the whole spectrum for us is, we like lots and lots of data, or we don't really need to know any data. We want to be informed if a project is at risk. And that's kind of one of the things that we're thinking through in terms of advancements we're making in our own client portal. This is your client portal, and then we have a client portal which you don't need to make use of because of the ecosystem that we have here, and that's great. But we're thinking about ways in which we'll be bringing in core BI screens from our data store and put those into basic reports so customers can kind of click through those. It's it's there if you want it. If you don't want to use it, certainly don't have to. But it's an interesting concept to bring the simple view back to your teams. And when you guys are building in LME and adding new features, what's the mechanism for harvesting that feedback? Is it the loudest stakeholders? Is it the largest stakeholders? How much feedback do you get in terms of, Alfonso, I'd like a new feature?
Well, essentially, what we have implemented in our LME platform is every single time that an LME job, we call it LME job, is completed, it follows with a link to a very simple NPS survey. NPS Net Promoter Score, where they just grade us from 0 to 10, right? I mean, if people are not familiar with NPS, is if you get a 9 or a 10, that means that you have a stakeholder that is a promoter. Yeah. If you get from 6 to 8, it's I don't care. But if you get less than that, it says I hate you, right? But also we allow them to enter comments, right? So, and the commitment that I have with my team, I have a team that reviews those, and every time that we get a low score and with the comments, the commitment is that we go and talk to that stakeholder and please tell us, how can we help? And actually I can tell you there, and you can relate to this, not that it was the loudest, but at least it captured we captured their feedback. And just the simple fact that we go and reach out to learn from them, say, oh gosh, these guys paid attention, for once. And second, that we take their comments. Actually, we had a couple of releases ago in our LME development cycle that it was just solely devoted to implement stakeholder suggestions for ease of use of our tool. Yep. Once we implemented them, very easy that we value that it was good, and actually it would help not only that stakeholder, but it could deploy it everywhere, so everyone would benefit. Because that's another thing, right? We don't want to just customize, tailor-make solutions for a particular stakeholder just because they are screaming. No, it has to feed into this overall Cisco-wide benefit, right? And
there has to fit the vision, right? Otherwise, you're building spaghetti code to support every user that wants the same thing but different. So,
well, if we were going that way, we would only be building, perhaps, like you said, a spaghetti or another edition of the Jenga stack. So yeah. We don't want it.
Thanks for bringing up this slide, Mandy. You know, talking about the data that's important to Cisco and Cisco's stakeholders, and everybody is focused these days on what can we do with data to inform positions, create hypotheses, prove them out, etc. You've got the data that you need and the analytics you need upstream. And as we've talked about, you know, our services delivery platform, Pantheon, that sits behind the more macro level workflow movements that happen within the TMS. What Pantheon is doing for us is it's allowing us to capture a lot of data on discrete tasks, workflow steps, workers and individuals. And what this has really allowed us to do is pivot away from that rear view dash of like status reporting, and the status report is dead the minute it's sent, to an active dashboard. So our Mandy and Mandy's teams and her peers and coworkers now are using Power BI on a daily basis to understand all aspects of their programs and projects, and to let them focus on the outliers and to identify risks. There's a lot to see here in this particular instance of a Power BI screen, but I just want to point out a few things that, you know, when you're actively looking at on-time delivery by a single language, how that language impacts the overall on-time delivery, these things are moving, you know, daily, hourly, by the minute. We're able to get, and we spoke about this earlier, the importance of getting the right metadata around specific workers lets us understand, you know, how many discrete actions or tasks does a given worker have on a program in a defined date range. So many different ways to slice this data. And then understanding, you know, we look at this very closely and correlate this to other actions, you know, how long does it take for them to claim a task once we give them that task? How much time do they spend on that task before they complete it? And we can see that by language, by worker, and we can make comparative assessments to understand the efficacy of our workers better. And oftentimes what we're finding is that all of our preconceived notions around what good was and around what a worker should be doing to get to good, we sometimes finding those rather challenged. There are some workers out there that have impeccable on-time delivery, and yet they take the longest to claim an offer. And that's okay, because what matters is the on-time delivery. And what we're learning is that our 70,000 linguists worldwide that are working across our programs, they all work differently and they all schedule their days differently. So there's quality scores here, and there's the ability to dig in and look at other stuff. But what this is really doing is allowing us to get to the concept of smart resourcing, lower touch handoffs between PMs and our workers, all this driven by data, and all this supported by the ecosystem, the tech ecosystem that we built with you. So I know that we're coming up on some time. We really do want to get to some questions. I think there's a slide for you, Alfonso, on where we're going next.
Yeah, essentially with where we are going, that's why I said to Mandy, buckle up, because we're not done yet. I mean, we need to be relentless on keeping pace with the innovation that it is already in the industry, right? I mentioned about this Track Your Package, but also we are actively working, and also with Mandy's team, in terms of how we can, and the rest of the vendors, how we bring an auto quote model that basically says, again, keeping the stakeholder in mind, how I can come to LME, and instead of just requesting a job and waiting for someone to give me a quote, immediately within seconds or a minute, I will get an automated estimate from the system, because we have put on our infrastructure all the agreed upon rates, SLAs, etc., that can quickly turn that around based on the content that is entered by the stakeholder into a quick estimate that will give them a flavor as to where we are, so then they can proceed, right? That's one, I mean, the most significant. And the other one is also working with, as I said, we have a vendor agnostic model, how we are building this, getting to a dynamic job assignment based on rules that we're going to be creating, how we can dedicate a type of content to a particular vendor, I mean, based on those rules, right? And in the other hand of the spectrum, keep working with our stakeholders into integrations, how much more we can integrate with them to make this as touchless as possible. At the end of the day, if you see in the bottom line is how we can ensure business continuity, bringing intelligence with integrations, and in leveraging this vendor agnostic vision.
Yeah, and when we look at sort of where We Localize is going on two fronts, one through the Cisco lens set, I mean, it's clear that we're working and will continue to work with you on this notion of auto quoting. I think that's a powerful concept. There's enough data out there now in terms of throughputs, the pricing models being established, that we're getting order of magnitude estimates automatically that are actually quite accurate. So we'll continue working on that and then optimizing any connectors based on what you guys are doing between XTM and your middleware. On a more macro level, that We Localize kind of where we're headed through the use of data is, you know, there's some updates that we're doing to our client portal in terms of ease of use, and as I mentioned, bringing in those data views so that folks have more vision into the performance of their programs and projects. But a big focus for us in terms of using our data is getting to this concept of smart resourcing. So like you're mentioning, low touch, being able to have the system and or agents direct projects to the right places. Taking that down a level, we have to do that times 100 at the task level. And so in doing that, we want to be able to utilize data to help our project managers through prescriptive agents take the right course of action, or have the opportunity for the system to say, this should go here, and just approve it, and then ultimately get to the point where the system is just making those choices. And so again, data is driving that, and there's a lot of focus on this notion of smart resourcing, getting things to, getting packages to the right people. A ton of metadata has been harvested, developed, and managed, maintained within our system on our resources, and it's giving us untold opportunities to unlock new features with that. Yeah. So with that, I know that we probably went over what we thought we were going to do, and it's going to happen when we talk, right?
A lot of great questions coming in. So thank you, Darren and Alfonso. We'll get to as many questions as possible. If we don't get to yours today, we'll reach out. We're also going to do a blog post. We have some additional content on our webpage, on our website for other webinars we've done, so check those out. But let's get into the questions. So,
and hey, Mandy, before we do that, I think we're all planning to go over a little bit. We'll go over as long as we can. We'll kind of see how the questions go, but yeah, let's kick it off.
Perfect. This first one is for you, Alfonso. How big is Cisco's globalization and translation services team?
How big? In terms of my Cisco people that I have, it's 8 of us, including me. I mean, it's 8 of us. I mean, it's and basically it's a team that basically does the engagement management, which I call it the engagement managers, which is dedicated to be talking to those stakeholders, bringing the awareness, being that consultant to them, or as we call it, the evangelizers of localization. Then I have in the other end the production or service delivery, right? That is the one that works with, like with you, Mandy. I mean, Oscar. I mean, it's with all the vendors, working with them, ensuring that the playing field remains level. And obviously, I have my tech gurus that are the ones helping us devise all this tech stack. I mean, it's a very small team that I have. Yeah, and but we rely a lot heavily in all of our vendors.
Perfect. This next one, 2 questions. I'm going to wrap them into one. How do you differentiate between the use of an MT engine providers? Is it by language, content type, or other? And then who manages the MT translation vendors?
I'm going to start with the second part. We manage the translation. That was part of the decisions that we had to make a couple of years ago in terms of us, instead of relying on someone, I mean, to provide the machine translation capability to us, which, by the way, I mean, Darren, remember, Mandy, you were the ones who got us started into the machine translation. But they got to a point where we said, thank you, WeLocalize. We have learned. I mean, you help us. Now we need to own it. And now we have expanded that to and we have with the 3 major machine translations vendors, and we have the management of deciding which engine is for which language and domain, with the ability of switching back. I mean, in XTM, that's another beautiful thing, right? And we have switches that we can dedicate which engine will process which language and domain. So it becomes something, it sounds simple, but yeah, that's how we decided to own it.
Yeah, we had years of working with you guys on building out the MT models, training engines, and yeah, to your point, you instantiated that internally, and it's working for everybody.
Yeah.
And then the first part of that question is it's differentiated by language, correct?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Just to make the answer more clearly, it is yeah, we have a model that says by language and by domain. By domain we mean, I mean, either marketing content, technical content, legal, etc. Because not all engines are equal. And despite the fact that one of them may claim that they are the best of the best, yeah, we have actually tried and tested those major 3. And yeah, you'll see some discrepancies, right? I mean, not discrepancies, but some variance. And we want to be able to leverage those, right? Again, how we can serve our stakeholders better.
Excellent. The next question, was LME built by Cisco, WeLocalize, or XTM?
None of the above.
Yeah.
None of the above, because LME is basically resides on a commercially available application, which is Pega. I mean, Pega Systems is a company that provides these tools that are workflow heavy in terms of work, that is for, you know, customer services type of applications. But we found a way that how we could leverage that workflow capability of Pega, and basically we work with the Pega development team on a regular basis just to fine tune, I mean, to create customization. Not actually, it's not customization, because that would imply
configuration, really, right?
Yeah, configuration. Yes, thank you, Darren. It's configure the existing standard capabilities of Pega to help us in this service.
Yeah, so pegasystems.com, off the shelf, and then you worked with their solutions organizations to configure the Pega platform to serve up what you need. Yep.
Yeah.
And next question, what type of content is being localized? Is Software UI part of it?
We have all kinds of content. We go from the very simple Word document that is perhaps a letter to a customer, all the way to the product software UI. We localize that, I mean, and everything in between, videos, audios, I mean, dubbing, white papers, tech docs. It's a whole gamut that we provide that service to Cisco. Like I said, from the simple document to the complex configuration and localization of a software application offer that you will see Cisco in the world.
The next one says, hi, Alfonso. Without having in-house language specialists on your team, how do you ensure the translations meet your tone of voice, style, etc.?
That's a very good question, and that's always the I wouldn't say the struggle, but it is always the challenge, right? Because as we all know, I mean, the perception of quality in translation heavily depends on an individual. For instance, I am a native speaker, Spanish native speaker, and if you give me a document, right, I will tell you, oh no, this is how it needs to be said, because I am bringing my background as to how things need to be said. Whereas if you give that document to my peer, to my colleague, also Spanish speaking, he or she may tell you something different. What we rely on, since we don't have my team, I don't have those specialists in language. What we rely on again, working with our stakeholders, since they are going to be the recipients of our work, we work with them and they assign what we call it the SME or in-country reviewers, who are people that are perhaps in the marketing organization in Korea or in Germany, that eventually they will manage that content when talking to their customers or stakeholders in their country. They get it. They get a view of that, and they work with us using our platform to provide feedback, right? I mean, that's how we have managed to I would say close the circle, right, in terms of ensuring the best quality possible. I mean, in this case, tailored to what a specific market the content will land on. And but also, as a separate note, as an internal process that we work with our vendors, is how we ensure that within our own supply chain, we have the translators working with their own linguists of the company, providing data that also is capturing the system as to how much data is being audited and what type of changes, to at least have a sense of where we are in terms of the perception of quality, that then later we can correlate to that feedback that we receive from those in-country reviewers.
Yeah, you're correlating that DQF quality work that your vendors are doing, so you have a standards-based approach to quality, and then you're also keeping the door open for that in-country reviewer somewhere in your organization that is going to have that personal feedback. So you kind of have those two loops going on, and that gives you the quality comfort.
Right, I was just going to add to that too, from a production standpoint, is that we have set up a very robust quality program for Cisco, and it's led by a team of language leads who are specialized and experts, been working on Cisco and Cisco type content for years. And then we do a very rigorous DQF language assessment on a regular basis. So these linguists are vetted, trained, tested, and then we do a feedback loop where they meet with the linguist and train them based on the feedback that they're seeing. So it is a constant feedback loop. Mm-hmm. We are about 3 minutes over.
We do a couple more questions. What do you guys think?
We still have quite a few people on the line, so trying to find the ones that would be the most applicable. This one's around MT. There's a lot of interest around MT. So what is your monthly volumes for translation? And I know we did have a slide, I can jump back to that, but MT requires a large volume to justify your cost of training the engine. So Afonso, I was thinking it might be worth talking about the Cisco Translate that you have internally as well, just to touch on that. So I'm going to go back to the slide with the data on it for the volumes.
Yeah, and the Cisco Translate, I mean, it's funny, the Cisco Translate volume is not represented in this blue chart. The Cisco Translate is a capability and offer that we have for all of our Cisco employees. As long as you have a Cisco CEC or user ID, right, in the system, you have access to, if you just type translate once you are in the Cisco main webpage, you will be brought to this portal where you can either think of it, I hate to say this, but think of it like the Google Translate. Actually, we created Cisco Translate to really bring that exact same capability, but with the difference that it is inside our firewall, therefore protecting the Cisco's IP. So you come, you type a text, and you select the language, and it will translate it for you instantly. Or you have a small file that you just got from for example, your customer in Japan. And gee, I don't know, I need to respond, but I just need to know what they're telling me. So I upload that little document, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, etc., the major PDFs, as long as it is text-driven PDF. It will translate it for you. I mean, it's raw machine translation, but what we have found is that with that offering, we have covered a specific need from many users in Cisco, that I just need a quick and dirty translation that will give me the gist or just the idea of what they are telling me. So that's one that we have said. But now, since it has become very popular, we have, I mean, we process in the order of, I mean, magnitude of, I mean, over 3-5 million words and Cisco Translate alone on a quarterly basis, right?
Yeah.
That helps us obviously feed our translation memory, and also help us to for the training of the engines. But also, given that it enabled us to, now that we have Cisco Translate, we have also given the opportunity now for the stakeholders that once they receive that quick and dirty, they are offered an option to click a button, and if they want a more robust translation, just click the button and automatically will take them to the LME portal, so that way they can formally request a translation job for that same material.
Do you have any data, Alfonso, on the volume of click-throughs to a project? So if you have, 1,000 in a quarter, 1,000 of the Cisco Translate requests, what percentage of those turn into an actual project?
For the most, yes, we do. For the most part, they stay in the Cisco Translate, because because we have a statistic as to how much the word count is. Yeah. It's very little text. I mean, it's something that, oh, I just want this quick and dirty, right? But I would say that is 90% stays in, fits that need, but there's a 10%, which, by the way, I guess it will continue to grow, because we started with 99 and 1, only 1% came. Now it's now 90-10. So we expect that eventually it will continue to grow, because now it is another way for stakeholders to come to our process.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, we are going on about 10 minutes over, so we have a lot of questions. We will be following up with those individually and possibly on our blog. But do please check out our website, and we'll be sending out that quick survey for feedback on this webinar. So we would really appreciate it if you could take the 2 minutes to fill it out. I put our information up on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to Darren, Alfonso, myself, or We Localize in general. And if you have any other additional questions that come up after the fact, we would be more than happy to work those through with you. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your summer.
I enjoyed our conversation, Alfonso. Take care.
Thank you. Likewise, Darren. Thank you. Thank you, Mandy. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.